My name is Carrie Walsh. I'm 35 years old, and I've been a bartender for almost 14 years. 3 months ago, I stood in the entrance hall of my mother's second wedding with my 9-year-old daughter Emma, holding one hand, and my 6-year-old son Noah, holding the other. Both of my kids had white plastic tags clipped to their clothes. The tags didn't have their names on them. They said, "Cleaner's Kid." I stared at the words until the letters stopped looking real. Emma tried to cover hers with her hand. Noah looked up at me. "Mom, why does mine say cleaner?" Before I could answer, my mother's new husband, Victor, came around the corner in a navy tuxedo, saw the tags, and actually smirked. Not an embarrassed smile, not an awkward laugh, a smirk. He looked at me, then at my kids, and said, "Don't make a scene, Carrie. You and your kids are just staff here." Behind him, his oldest daughter laughed. My mother heard him. She was standing less than 10 feet away, and she laughed too. That was the part I still heard in my head later. Not Victor's voice, hers. 20 minutes after that, when my children discovered there were no chairs for them, no plates with their names, and no place for us at any of the 14 decorated tables, my mother shrugged and said the sentence that finally killed something in me. "Food is for family, Carrie." I had paid $8,400 of the catering bill. I had stocked half the reception bar myself. I had spent 2 days before the wedding running errands because my mother said she was overwhelmed. And the house she and Victor were planning to move into after their honeymoon? They thought it belonged to her. It didn't. The deed was in my name. And inside the cream-colored envelope in my purse was the wedding gift I had almost given them. A prepared transfer deed, unsigned. I had planned to hand my mother a house. Instead, I took Emma's hand, put my arm around Noah, and looked directly at the woman who had spent my entire life teaching me that love was something I had to earn by being useful. "Then we're no longer your family." My mother's smile vanished. Victor's did too. But not for the reason I first thought. Because an hour later, in front of 137 people, Victor announced what he and my mother intended to do with their house. And that was when I opened the envelope. If you had met my mother before that wedding, you probably would have liked her. Most people did. Elaine Walsh remembered birthdays. She sent handwritten Christmas cards. She could walk into a room of strangers and leave knowing everyone's children's names. She brought casseroles when somebody was sick. She cried at graduation videos belonging to people she barely knew. Everyone said she was warm, generous, devoted to family. I learned early that generosity looked very different depending on which side of the front door you were standing on. My older sister Tessa was 3 years older than me. Tessa was the daughter my mother understood. I was the daughter she managed. When Tessa was happy, Mom said she was thriving. When Tessa was upset, something had happened to her. When I was happy, Mom asked me what I was getting away with. When I was upset, I was being dramatic. The first time I remember understanding the difference, I was 8. My birthday fell on a Saturday that year. Mom had promised I could invite 6 girls from school over for pizza, cake, and a sleepover. I had made little invitations myself. I drew purple balloons around the edges and wrote everyone's names in glitter pen. 2 days before my birthday, Tessa's dance instructor announced an extra rehearsal. It wasn't mandatory. Tessa just wanted to go because she had a crush on one of the older boys helping with the recital. Mom canceled my sleepover. "We can reschedule yours," she told me. "But it's my birthday. You'll have other birthdays." I remember standing in the kitchen holding the stack of glitter invitations. "But everyone already said they're coming." Mom sighed. Not angry, worse. Tired. As if being disappointed were another chore I had assigned her. "Carrie, sometimes being part of a family means being flexible." That sentence followed me for 27 years. Be flexible. When my plans mattered less, be flexible. When my money was needed, be flexible. When I was expected to work while everyone else celebrated, be flexible. When my feelings got in the way of someone else's comfort, be flexible. I learned early that in my family, be useful meant don't expect a seat. My father, Daniel, was different. Not perfect, just different. He noticed things. The night Mom canceled my birthday party, he got home from work after 9, found me asleep on the couch, and saw the invitations on the coffee table. The next morning, he woke me before everyone else. He drove me to a 24-hour grocery store. We bought powdered donuts, orange juice, and a ridiculous foil balloon shaped like a purple star. Then he took me to the park, just the two of us. He stuck a candle into a donut and sang happy birthday. I remember laughing so hard I almost dropped it. Dad leaned across the picnic table and said, "Never confuse being low maintenance with not mattering." I didn't understand how important that sentence was. Not then. Dad died when I was 26. Massive heart attack. No warning. I was 5 months pregnant with Emma. For a while after that, our family's old patterns seemed too small to survive grief. Mom and I talked every day. Tessa came home more. We cleaned out Dad's workshop together. We cried over his old flannel shirts. I thought losing him had made us closer. What it really did was remove the only person who had consistently noticed when I disappeared inside the word family. By 17, I had become extremely good at being useful. I worked at a neighborhood restaurant after school. I started as a hostess, then I bussed tables, then I served. The bartender there, a woman named Marisol, taught me how to make drinks when I turned 18. She taught me something else, too. People tell you who they are when they think you're serving them, she said. I laughed when she first told me that. Years later, I realized it was practically scripture. I got a partial scholarship to a hospitality management program after high school. I remember holding the letter in our kitchen. Dad picked me up and spun me around. Mom looked at the tuition amount that remained and said, "So you're going into debt to learn how to carry drinks?" Tessa's college costs more. Tessa's studying physical therapy. I looked at her. And? Mom blinked. And that's a career. Dad said her name sharply. "Elaine." "What?" she said. "I'm being realistic." I never forgot it. Even after I became bar manager at 24. Even after I started earning more than Tessa during wedding season. Even after restaurants began asking specifically for me to handle private events because I could manage inventory, staff, customers, schedules, and 3 problems at once without losing my head. To Mom, I carried drinks. That was convenient whenever she needed something. At Tessa's engagement party, I was asked to help with beverages. I spent 4 hours behind a rented bar while everyone else took pictures. At my cousin's graduation, Mom called me the morning of the party. "The bartender canceled." "I'm a guest." "I know, sweetheart, but this is an emergency." I bartended. At Dad's memorial gathering 6 months after his death, I was the one who filled coolers, made coffee, picked up sandwich trays, and stayed after midnight washing serving dishes. Tessa sat with family friends and cried. No one asked her to clear anything. When I finally sat down, Mom looked around the kitchen and said, "Carrie, there are still glasses outside." I should have said no. Instead, I stood up. That was how the pattern survived. Not because I couldn't see it. Because I kept hoping that if I gave enough, eventually somebody would look at me and say, "You've done enough. Sit down. Let us take care of you." Nobody ever did. I had Emma at 26 and Noah 3 years later. Their father, Jason, and I separated when Noah was 2. No scandal, no affair. We had simply become 2 exhausted people who were better parents apart than spouses together. We shared custody. We were civil. He paid what he was supposed to pay, took the kids on his weekends, showed up for school events, and never made me beg him to act like their father. My mother treated my divorce as evidence of a character flaw. "You've always been too independent," she told me. I laughed. "What does that even mean?" "It means you don't know how to let a man feel needed." I had 2 babies, a full-time job, and a husband who worked nights. There. That tone. What tone? That one. The conversation ended the way most conversations with my mother ended, with my response becoming the problem instead of the thing I was responding to. Then Victor arrived. He was 61 when Mom met him, 10 years older than her. He owned a small commercial flooring company that had done very well before he sold most of it. He liked expensive watches, bourbon he could describe for 20 minutes, and telling people how things really worked. Victor had 2 adult daughters. Camille was 32, Morgan was 29. They treated him like a king who had graciously agreed to share oxygen with the rest of us. The first time I met Victor, I was behind the bar at the restaurant where I worked. Mom brought him in deliberately. I think she wanted to show me off without admitting she wanted to show me off. "This is Carrie," she said. "My youngest." Victor looked at me, then at the bar. "So this is the bartender." Not, "Nice to meet you." Not, "Elaine talks about you." The bartender. I smiled. "That's me." He tapped the bar twice. "Make me an old-fashioned." Mom laughed. "Victor." "What?" "She's working." He smiled at me. "She knows what she's doing." It sounded complimentary. It wasn't. It was an order dressed like confidence. I made his drink. He took one sip. "Not bad." Marisol, who was working beside me that evening, waited until they went to their table. Then she leaned toward me. "That man is going to be a problem." I said, "You got all that from an old-fashioned?" "No." She glanced toward Mom's table. "I got it from the way he never asked if you had time to make it." Victor proposed 11 months later. Mom called me screaming. Not upset, happy screaming. I held the phone away from my ear. "He proposed!" "That's great, Mom. We're getting married in June." "That fast? Why wait at our age?" I smiled. "If you're happy, I'm happy." I meant it. That's the stupid part. Even now, I don't regret wanting my mother to be happy. I regret how many times I confused supporting her happiness with accepting my own humiliation. The wedding started small, 40 people, backyard ceremony, simple dinner. Then Victor got involved. A backyard became Magnolia Ridge, a private events property 40 minutes outside Lexington. 40 guests became 80. 80 became 137. Dinner became plated catering. A playlist became a DJ. Then a live string trio appeared for the ceremony. Mom called me one night. "Tiny problem." I already knew what that meant. "How tiny?" "The catering balance is due Monday." "And?" "Victor's money is tied up until the sale on one of his business properties clears." I waited. She cleared her throat. "We're short." "How short?" $8,400. I almost laughed. "That's not short, Mom. That's a used car. We'll pay you back." "I don't have $8,400 lying around." "You told me you were saving." That made my stomach tighten. I was saving. For my children. For emergencies. For the possibility of putting a down payment on a slightly bigger house someday, so Emma and Noah could stop sharing the tiny upstairs bathroom with me. "Those are my savings." "You'd still have money left." "How do you know?" Silence. Then I remembered. 6 months earlier, Mom had helped me organize paperwork after a pipe burst in my apartment. She had seen the account statement. "Mom, it's not like I went looking. You remembered exactly how much was in my savings account." "Carrie, don't make this ugly. I'm asking my daughter for help." There it was. Family. The word that turned every boundary into betrayal. I said, "When can you pay it back?" "September at the latest." I closed my eyes. "You're sure?" "Yes." "And this is the final wedding expense?" "Absolutely." I paid it. 2 weeks later, she asked me to order $1,260 worth of premium liquor at my wholesale event rate. "Victor wants a proper bar," You already have a bar package. He doesn't like their bourbon selection. Then Victor can buy bourbon. Mom laughed. You know how he is. That sentence became her excuse for everything. Victor didn't like being corrected. You know how he is. Victor thought children should be seen in pictures and then entertained elsewhere. You know how he is. Victor joked about bartending not being a real profession. You know how he is. Victor called my apartment temporary housing, even though I had lived there 4 years. You know how he is. Funny how nobody ever said that about me. Nobody said, Carrie expects basic respect. You know how she is. The house complicated everything. After Dad died, Mom nearly lost our family home on Ashby Lane. Dad had been terrible about paperwork. There was a home equity line, back taxes, a business loan he had personally guaranteed. Mom was overwhelmed. Tessa was in another state. I was pregnant and working 5 nights a week. Still, I handled it. For 14 months, I sat with accountants, I called lenders, I met with an estate attorney. I sold Dad's old pickup and some equipment from the workshop. The house still had too much debt attached to it for Mom to keep on her income. She was ready to let it go. I wasn't. That house was the last place Dad had lived. The kitchen doorway still had pencil marks showing Tessa's and my heights from kindergarten through high school. Dad had built the back deck himself. There was a dent beside the basement door from the time I threw a softball inside and swore for 11 years I hadn't done it. So I made a decision that looked insane on paper. I bought the house from the estate. Not for free, not through some magical inheritance. I took on the remaining loan. I put $38,000 of my own savings toward the debt and closing costs. The deed went into my name. Mom signed everything. She knew. At least, she knew then. We had an occupancy agreement drawn up, giving her the right to remain there as long as she followed basic conditions and paid a modest monthly amount toward expenses. $500. She paid it twice. Then she told me money was tight. I said, skip this month. 1 month became 6. 6 became a year. Eventually, I stopped asking. I paid the mortgage, taxes, insurance, a new water heater, part of the roof. When the furnace died, I picked up 4 extra private events and paid $6,700 to replace it. Mom thanked me. Then gradually, in conversation, it became my house again. At first, I didn't care. She lived there. It had been her home for 30 years. If calling it hers made her feel secure, fine. Then Victor started calling it theirs. The first time was at Thanksgiving. He stood in Dad's old workshop, holding a glass of wine. This space is wasted, he said. I looked around. Dad's workbench was still bolted to the wall. What would you use it for? Golf simulator. I laughed because I thought he was joking. He wasn't. I'm serious. Once I'm here full-time, I'll tear this bench out. My smile disappeared. You're not tearing anything out. Victor raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? This was Dad's workshop. And? And the bench stays. He looked toward Mom. Elaine? Mom gave me that familiar look, the one that said I was making things difficult. Carrie, it's just a bench. No, it's Dad's bench. Your father has been gone 9 years. I stared at her. Victor took another sip. There's no point turning a house into a shrine. I said, very quietly, it's my house. The room changed. Mom's face tightened. Victor chuckled. Technically. I looked at him. What does that mean? Your mother explained the arrangement. I turned to her. What arrangement? Mom rushed in. He knows the deed is in your name. Then why is he talking about remodeling without asking me? Victor put his glass down. Because Elaine and I will be living here. That doesn't make it yours. He smiled, not warmly. Carrie, Adults can usually distinguish between legal paperwork and real life. I remember thinking, that is going to matter later. I had no idea how much. 3 months before the wedding, Mom asked me to come over. Aunt June was there. June was Mom's younger sister and the only member of our family who had ever consistently challenged her. June had no talent for pretending. If she thought something was ridiculous, her face told you before her mouth did. When I arrived, Mom was at the kitchen table surrounded by wedding magazines. Victor wasn't there. Tessa wasn't there. Mom smiled. I wanted to ask you something. I sat down. Okay. She slid a folder toward me. Inside were real estate printouts. What is this? Victor and I have been discussing our future. I looked at June. She was staring at the table. Mom continued. He's selling his condo after the wedding. Okay. And he'll move here. I know. We'd like some stability. I actually laughed. You live here. Yes, but legally. She stopped. There it was. Legally. The word Victor had dismissed at Thanksgiving. What are you asking? Mom reached across the table. I want you to put the house back in my name. I looked at her hand over mine. Back? You know what I mean. No, I don't. It was our family home. And I bought it. With your father's estate. $38,000 of my money plus the mortgage I'm still paying. Mom's jaw tightened. June finally spoke. She's right, Elaine. Mom pulled her hand away. I'm not denying that. It sounds like you are. Carrie, this isn't a business transaction between strangers. I almost smiled. Every time money flowed from me toward her, we were family. Every time ownership flowed the other way, suddenly paperwork was cold and technical. What exactly does Victor want? This isn't about Victor. So it's about Victor. She pushed her chair back. He doesn't want to sell his condo and invest in renovating a house he has no legal claim to. That was the moment I understood. Victor wasn't just planning to live there. He wanted equity. Then he shouldn't invest in renovations. Carrie. What? He's going to be my husband. And? Mom's voice rose. And I should not have to ask my daughter's permission to make decisions about my own home. My home. The words came out before I could soften them. Mom stared at me. Then she started crying. Instantly. June sighed. Elaine. No, it's fine, Mom said. Apparently, I need to remember my place. I nearly laughed at the irony. Instead, guilt landed exactly where it always landed. I said, what if I transferred it to you? Mom stopped crying. Not slowly. Immediately. I noticed. She looked at me. You would? After the wedding. Her whole face changed. She came around the table and hugged me. Oh, Carrie. I stood stiffly at first, then hugged her back, because despite everything, she was my mother. I don't want you feeling insecure, I said. You have no idea what this means. I did. The house was worth around $318,000. There was still a loan balance, but significant equity remained. I contacted the same attorney who had handled parts of Dad's estate. We discussed options. He warned me repeatedly. You understand that if you transfer title outright, Carrie, you no longer control what happens next. I know. If your mother adds Victor to the deed afterward, that becomes their decision. I know. If they sell, I know. He studied me. Do you? I didn't answer. He prepared preliminary transfer documents, but told me not to sign anything until I was absolutely certain. I placed them in a cream-colored legal envelope. My plan was to give them to Mom after the wedding. A fresh start. One final grand gesture proving that I wasn't difficult, that I was generous, that I loved her. Aunt June found out. She called me. You're transferring the house? Yes, Why? Because she's my mom. That isn't an answer. I got irritated. She wants security. She has security. June, she has lived there almost 9 years without paying you meaningful rent. I know. You paid for the furnace. I know. You paid the roof. I know. You're paying the mortgage. June. She went quiet. Then she said, Carrie, how much are you going to give away before you believe you deserve to be treated like someone who gave something? I didn't answer, because I didn't like the answer. The week of the wedding, Mom turned me into an employee without ever actually saying so. Monday, she asked me to confirm the wine delivery. Tuesday, I picked up 2 cases of champagne. Wednesday, I drove 40 minutes to Magnolia Ridge because Victor wanted to change the bourbon order. Thursday, I spent 3 hours making a bar inventory sheet for the venue staff because Mom said nobody else understood quantities the way I did. Friday afternoon, I was carrying ice buckets through the reception hall when Camille arrived with her bridesmaid dress hanging from one hand. She looked me up and down. You're wearing that tomorrow? I was in jeans and a restaurant t-shirt. To carry ice? She rolled her eyes. No, your dress. I have a dress. What color? Dark green? She frowned. Dad said staff should wear black. I stared at her. I'm not staff. Camille blinked. Oh. She said it like she had genuinely forgotten, then smiled. Right. That should have been enough. It wasn't. Mom called at 10:47 Friday night. Please don't be mad. I closed my eyes. What? 2 bartenders called out. No. Carrie. No! We just need you during cocktail hour. I am attending your wedding. I know. As your daughter. Of course. With your grandchildren. Yes. So hire replacements. It's too late. Then the venue can figure it out. They charge $600 for emergency staffing. I laughed once. So pay it. After everything I've spent? I stood in my kitchen staring at the refrigerator while Emma colored at the table. Noah was already asleep. Mom, I paid $8,400 toward your catering. You said that was a loan. It is. Exactly. So it isn't like you paid for my wedding. That sentence hit strangely. I had transferred $8,400, hadn't been repaid $1, and somehow, because she had named it a future loan repayment, my help no longer counted in the present. I said, I'm not bartending your wedding. Silence. Then the temperature of her voice dropped. Fine. That word. Fine. I knew it. Fine meant punishment was coming later. I just didn't know it would be attached to my children's clothes. Saturday morning, Emma came into my room wearing her dress. Pale blue, tiny white flowers. She spun once. Do I look fancy? You look dangerous. She grinned. How? Because you're going to make everybody else look bad. Noah ran in behind her wearing one sock. Where's my other one? How would I know? Your mom. Apparently that was reasonable evidence. For 40 minutes, our apartment was chaos. Shoes, hair clips, a missing tie, cereal nobody finished, Emma complaining that Noah touched her hair, Noah denying he had hands. Normal. Good. For a little while, I forgot the tension. I put on my dark green dress. It was simple but beautiful. Fitted waist, long sleeves, nothing dramatic. Dad used to say green made my eyes look brighter. I wore his old watch on my wrist. It was too big for me. I had never resized it. I liked it that way. Before we left, I looked at the cream envelope on my dresser. The deed paperwork was inside. I almost left it there. Then I imagined Mom opening it after the reception, crying, hugging me, maybe saying, for once, Carrie, you've done too much. I put it in my purse. Hope makes intelligent people do embarrassing things. We arrived at Magnolia Ridge at 2:35. The ceremony was scheduled for 4. Mom had asked me to arrive early for family pictures. At the entrance, a coordinator named Lacey was checking names. She knew me. We had spoken several times during planning. She looked surprised when I walked up with the kids. "Oh, Carrie." "Hi." She looked at her clipboard, then at me. "Can you give me 1 second?" My stomach tightened. "Sure." She disappeared behind a set of double doors. Emma whispered, "Are we early?" "No." Lacey returned with Camille. Camille had her hair pinned up and was carrying a box of plastic tags. "There you are," she said. "I've been texting you." "My phone is in my purse. We need to identify support people because vendors keep wandering into guest areas." I frowned. "What support people?" "Staff." "I'm not staff." She exhaled impatiently. "Carrie, can we not do this today?" "Do what?" "Make everything a thing." Lacey looked deeply uncomfortable. Camille pulled out a clip. It said, "Cleaner." I actually laughed. "What is that?" "Dad reorganized assignments." "Assignments?" "You said you wouldn't bartend, so we have you helping clean up after dinner." I stared at her. "I never agreed to that." "Well, somebody has to help." "Then hire somebody." Her eyes narrowed. "You know, your mother has done a lot for you." I almost asked her to name one thing. Instead, I said, "I'm here as her daughter." Camille held up another tag. "Fine, wear it or don't." Then she looked at Emma and Noah. She pulled out 2 smaller tags. "Cleaner's kid." I felt the blood leave my face. "No." Camille shrugged. "It just tells the staff they're with you. They have names. It's organizational." "You printed these?" "Dad had them made." Lacey said quietly, "We can use blank tags." Camille ignored her. She clipped one to Emma's cardigan before I could stop her. Emma looked down. Then Camille clipped the second to Noah's jacket. He sounded the words out. "Clean-ers kid." He looked at me. "Mom, why does mine say cleaner?" I reached for the clip. That was when Victor appeared. He had been standing near the staircase with 2 men I didn't know. He saw me holding Noah's tag. His mouth tilted. "Don't make a scene, Carrie." I looked at him. "What the hell is this?" "Language." "My children are wearing tags that say cleaner's kid." "You were asked to help." "I was asked last night. I said no." Victor gave a tiny shrug. "You work events for a living." "I'm your wife's daughter." "And today we all have roles." "My role is family." He leaned closer. "You and your kids are just staff here." One of the men behind him looked away. The other pretended to check his phone. And then I heard laughter. My mother. She was coming down the hallway in a silk robe with her makeup done and rollers still pinned into part of her hair. She had heard him. She laughed. "Victor, stop." But she was smiling. He turned. "What?" "You're going to upset her." Mom looked at me. "He's joking." "No, he isn't." Her smile faded slightly. "Carrie." I unhooked Emma's tag, then Noah's. I dropped both on the check-in table. "We're not wearing those." Victor muttered. "Always difficult." I heard him. Emma heard him too. That mattered more. I took the kids outside. I crouched between them. "You two okay?" Emma's chin was trembling. "I thought we were guests." "You are." "Then why did they call us cleaner kids?" I had no answer a 9-year-old should have to hear. Noah said, "I don't want to clean." I almost laughed. Instead, I pulled him against me. "You're not cleaning anything." "Are you?" "No." Emma whispered, "Can we go home?" I should have said yes. God, I wish I had. But Mom's photographer came around the corner right then. "Carrie, family pictures in 5. Family. Again. Always strong enough to summon me, never strong enough to seat me. I looked at Emma. "We'll take the picture for Grandma, then we'll see." She nodded. That was my last compromise. In the photographs, nobody would ever know anything was wrong. That is one of the strangest things about family pictures. They can document a lie perfectly. Mom stood in the center wearing ivory, Victor beside her. Tessa on Mom's left, Camille and Morgan beside Victor. I stood near the edge. Emma and Noah were in front of me. The photographer said, "Everybody closer." I moved half a step. Victor said, "Carrie, can you move over? You're blocking Morgan." I moved. The photographer smiled. "Perfect." Click. That picture exists somewhere. I have never seen it. I don't want to. The ceremony itself was beautiful. That almost made it worse. Mom looked happy, really happy. The string trio played. The late afternoon sun came through the trees. Victor cried during his vows. Mom cried too. For 20 minutes, I wondered whether I had imagined the cruelty. That was another skill my mother had taught me. Doubt your own pain the second the person who caused it looks human again. Emma leaned against me. Noah held my hand. When Mom and Victor kissed, everybody applauded. I did too. Then we walked toward the reception hall. There was a seating chart on a large gold-framed mirror. I saw Tessa, table 1. Aunt June, table 3. Camille, table 1. Morgan, table 1. I looked for Walsh. Nothing. I checked again. Emma pointed. "Where are we?" "I'm looking." We weren't there. I found Lacey. "Can you show me our table?" Her expression answered before she did. "Carrie." "No." She lowered her voice. "I'm sorry." "Where are my children supposed to sit?" "I was told you weren't part of the dinner count." I stared at her. "I confirmed 3 meals with my mother." "I know." "You emailed me about Noah's food allergy." "I know." "So what happened?" Lacey looked toward the ballroom. "The final seating list was changed Thursday." "By who?" She hesitated. "Victor approved it." I felt something inside me go very still. Not explode. Still. That scared me more. "Are there extra chairs?" "Yes." "Extra meals?" "There are vendor meals in the service area." I laughed. Of course there were. Vendor meals. For the cleaner and her cleaner's kids. Lacey touched my arm. "I can fix this." Before I could answer, Mom approached. She had changed into a shorter reception dress. "What's wrong?" I turned. "We're not on the seating chart." Mom's eyes flickered. Just once. She knew. "Carrie, please." "You knew." "It was a last-minute issue." "What issue?" "Numbers." "There are 137 people here." "We had to make decisions." "You removed your daughter and grandchildren?" "Don't say it like that." "How should I say it?" Her mouth tightened. "Victor has business associates here." I stared at her. "You removed us for his business associates?" "It's one dinner." Emma was standing beside me. Mom knew that. She still said it. I lowered my voice. "Where are your grandchildren supposed to eat?" Mom glanced toward the service hallway. "I'm sure the kitchen has something." I looked at her. "No chairs?" "Carrie." "No plates?" "You are making this much bigger than it is." "No place at the wedding dinner?" Mom exhaled. Then she smiled. Actually smiled. I think she thought humor would end the conflict. "Food is for family, Carrie." Tessa, who had walked up behind her, gave a nervous laugh. Victor was several feet away talking to guests. Camille was watching. My daughter looked up at me. And I understood something so clearly that it almost felt peaceful. This wasn't about me anymore. I had spent years teaching Emma and Noah how people should treat them. I told Emma not to keep chasing girls at school who only included her when they needed something. I told Noah that being kind didn't mean letting someone hit him. I told them they were allowed to say no. I told them love should feel safe. And there I was, standing in front of them, accepting the exact opposite from my own mother. Children rarely do what you tell them. They do what you show them. I had been showing mine how to stay. Enough. I took Emma's hand, put my other arm around Noah, then looked at Mom. Then we're no longer your family. Nobody laughed. Mom's face changed. Carrie. No. Stop being dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. You're threatening me at my wedding. No, I'm leaving your wedding. Victor finally walked over. What's going on? Mom said, Carrie is throwing a tantrum because she doesn't have a chair. Emma flinched. That did it. I looked at Victor. This isn't about a chair. He gave me that same smug expression. It certainly looks like it. I opened my purse. Not for the envelope. Not yet. I took out my car keys. Victor saw the cream envelope. His eyes dropped to it, then back to me. I noticed. At the time, I didn't know why. Aunt June appeared beside us. What happened? Tessa said, Carrie's leaving. June looked at the seating chart, then at Emma, then at Noah. She didn't ask another question. I'll walk you out. Mom's face went red. June, stay out of this. June looked at her sister. No. One word. Calm. No apology. I wanted to borrow her spine. So I did. We walked toward the doors. Behind me, Mom called, Carrie! I kept going. Then Victor called my name. I stopped. That was my mistake. Or maybe it wasn't, because what he said next changed everything. You'll want to stay for the toast. I turned. Why? His smile returned. Elaine and I have an announcement about the house. Aunt June went rigid beside me. I looked at Mom. She wouldn't meet my eyes. What announcement? Victor adjusted his cuff. You'll hear with everyone else. I looked at the cream envelope inside my purse, then at June. She whispered, Carrie. I knew what she meant. Leave. Take the children and leave. But I suddenly needed to know. Not because I wanted to fight, because something was wrong. Very wrong. I crouched in front of Emma. Do you want to sit with Aunt June outside for a few minutes? Emma looked worried. Are you coming? Yes. Promise? I promise. June said, I've got them. I kissed both kids. Then I walked back into the ballroom. Not to bartend, not to clean, to listen. The DJ announced the first toast at 6:18. I remember the exact time because I looked at Dad's watch. Victor took the microphone. Guests tapped glasses. Someone shouted his name. He smiled like a man who had never once doubted the room belonged to him. Mom stood beside him. Tessa was at table 1. Camille had her phone out recording. I stayed near the back wall. I didn't have a chair, after all. Victor thanked everyone for coming. He thanked his daughters. He thanked Tessa. He thanked our wonderful friends. Then he thanked the wedding party. He did not say my name. That part barely hurt anymore. Then he put his arm around Mom. And some of you have been asking where Elaine and I will start this next chapter. My stomach tightened. Mom smiled up at him. Victor continued. We've decided not to complicate things. I'll be selling my condo, and we'll make Elaine's beautiful home on Ashby Lane ours. Applause. I didn't move. He kept going. We're going to modernize it a little. A few people laughed. Actually, maybe a lot. More laughter. He looked at Mom. First thing to go is that old workshop. My hand closed around my purse strap. Dad's workshop. Victor smiled. Golf simulator. Laughter. I heard June inhale behind me. Apparently, she had brought the kids to the patio and come back. Then Victor said, after that, we're opening the kitchen, redoing the upstairs, and hopefully by Christmas, we'll have a proper home for entertaining instead of a museum to Elaine's first marriage. The room changed. Not everyone understood, but enough people did. Dad had been loved. Aunt June said, oh, hell no, under her breath. Mom touched Victor's arm. He mistook it for affection. I knew it was a warning. He kept talking anyway. And thanks to some paperwork Elaine has been sorting out, the house will finally be back where it belongs. There it was. I started walking. The first few people noticed me, then more. Mom saw me. Her face drained. Victor didn't, not until I reached the front. I held out my hand. Can I borrow the microphone? He blinked. No. A few guests laughed, thinking it was part of the toast. I smiled, not because anything was funny. Then I'll speak loudly. Mom whispered, Carrie, don't. I looked at her. Don't what? Not here. There were those words. Not here. All afternoon, I had been telling myself the same thing. Don't cry here. Not here. Don't react. Not here. Don't make them uncomfortable. Not here. But Victor had chosen here. Mom had chosen here. They had taken private assumptions and turned them into a public announcement. So this was the stage. I looked at the room. I'm sorry to interrupt. Victor reached for my arm. I stepped away. Do not touch me. Silence spread quickly. Phones lowered. Some rose higher. I took the cream envelope from my purse. Victor looked at it. His confidence cracked. Just a hair. Mom whispered, Carrie. I opened the envelope. I brought this today as a wedding gift. I held up the documents. My hands were steady. That surprised me. My mother asked me 3 months ago to transfer the Ashby Lane house into her name. A murmur moved through the room. Victor cut in. That is private. I looked at him. You just announced your renovation plans to 137 people. He flushed. I continued. 9 years ago, after my father died, that house was carrying debt my mother couldn't afford. I put $38,000 of my own money into keeping it. Mom said, Carrie, enough. I ignored her. I took on the remaining loan. I paid the mortgage. I paid the taxes. I paid the insurance. When the furnace died, I replaced it. When the roof needed repair, I paid that too. Victor grabbed the microphone from its stand. This is inappropriate. I turned toward him. No. What was inappropriate was putting tags on my children that said, cleaner's kid. The room went dead. Somebody near table 7 whispered, What? Camille's phone dropped slightly. I continued. What was inappropriate was telling my 6-year-old and 9-year-old that they were staff. Victor said, That was a misunderstanding. You said, you and your kids are just staff here. I was joking. You weren't. Mom stepped forward. Carrie, you are humiliating me. I looked at her. You laughed. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. I could hear the air conditioning, glasses being set down, a chair creaking. I said, Then when we discovered we had no chairs, no plates, and no places at dinner, you told me, food is for family. Mom's face turned scarlet. Tessa stared at the table. Victor lifted the microphone. That has nothing to do with our home. Our? I looked directly at him. You don't own Ashby Lane. He laughed. An actual laugh. Carrie, your mother explained. No. I pulled the recorded deed copy from the envelope. My name is the only name on the deed. Silence. Victor looked at Mom. Mom looked away. I continued. The transfer documents in this envelope were supposed to be my wedding gift. That landed. I watched it happen across Victor's face. Confusion, calculation, then fear. These documents would have transferred my ownership interest to my mother. Victor said quickly, Would have? Yes. Mom stepped toward me. Carrie, please. I looked down at the signature line. Blank. Then back at her. They're unsigned. Victor's jaw tightened. You already agreed to transfer the property. I agreed to consider gifting it. We made decisions based on your commitment. That was your decision. I'm selling my condo. Then don't. His expression hardened. You can't yank this away because your feelings got hurt over a seating chart. There it was, the old trick. Shrink the injury, then attack the reaction. I looked at him. This isn't about a seating chart. Then what is it about? The fact that you want the benefits of having me as family while treating me like hired help. He scoffed. I kept going. You wanted me to fund the wedding when you were short. Mom flinched. You wanted me to stock your bar. Victor's eyes moved toward the guests. You wanted me to transfer a house worth more than $300,000. I held up the papers. But my children weren't worth 2 chairs and 2 plates. Nobody moved. Victor said, "We can fix the chairs." I almost laughed. That was the moment I knew there was nothing left to explain. We're past chairs. Mom reached for me. I stepped away. She whispered, "You're really going to do this to me on my wedding day?" I stared at her. Do what? Take my home. The words cut through me, not because they were true, because she believed they would work. I said, I'm not taking anything from you. You just said, I'm choosing not to give you something that belongs to me. That house was mine before it was yours. And you signed the sale because I trusted you. And I spent 9 years making sure you could stay there. Her eyes filled. Around us, the crowd was completely silent. I lowered my voice. This isn't revenge, Mom. She shook her head. It feels like it. No. I put the documents back inside the envelope. This is reality. Victor's voice turned sharp. We'll contest it. June laughed from behind me. He looked at her. She said, Contest what? Her not giving you her property? Victor snapped. Stay out of this. June walked forward. No, Victor, you seem to have confused marrying my sister with inheriting my niece. A few people made involuntary noises, not laughter exactly. Recognition. Victor's face went dark. Then the bargaining began. It happened so fast, it was almost impressive. Carrie, he said, suddenly calmer. We are all emotional. No. Let's discuss this privately. No. This is your mother. I know. She deserves security. She had it. Then nothing needs to change. I looked at him. Everything changed when you taught my children what you think their place is. He glanced toward Mom. Elaine, say something. Mom was crying now. Real tears this time. Carrie, I'm sorry. I waited. She continued. But you know Victor gets carried away. There it was, the but. I almost smiled. Mom reached for me. We can put chairs at our table. No. I'll have meals brought out. No. We'll take those stupid tags away. They're already off. Then what do you want? That question nearly broke me. 35 years, and she still thought respect was something I needed to request after being denied it. I wanted you to not do it in the first place. She stared at me. I swallowed. Then I said the sentence I should have learned years earlier. You don't get to rewrite what you did to me just because you don't like what happens after. I turned. Victor said, Carrie. I kept walking. Carrie! I stopped once, looked over my shoulder. He was holding the microphone, Mom beside him. 137 people watching. You're making a huge mistake, he said. I looked at the man who had called my children's staff at a wedding partly paid for with my savings. No. I shook my head. I think I finally stopped making one. Then I walked out. Emma was sitting on the stone wall outside. Noah was eating crackers from Aunt June's purse. When Emma saw me, she jumped down. Are we going home? Yes. Are you mad? Not at you. No, at Grandma. I looked back at the glowing windows of Magnolia Ridge. Music had started again. Because weddings continue, even after families crack open in the middle of them. I'm sad, I said. Emma thought about that. Can you be mad and sad? Yes. At the same time? Definitely. Noah held out a cracker. Do you want one? I took it. Very much. We ate dinner at a 24-hour diner in formal clothes. Emma ordered pancakes. Noah got chicken strips. I had coffee and half of both their meals because I couldn't decide what I wanted. At 7-Eleven, my phone started vibrating. Mom. I declined. Victor. Declined. Tessa. Declined. Mom again. Then Camille. Then a number I didn't recognize. Then Tessa. A message appeared. You need to fix this. Mom is hysterical. I stared at it, then typed, my children were humiliated. Where were you then? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I didn't know Victor was serious about the tags. I wrote, you laughed when Mom said food was for family. No answer. I put my phone face down. Emma dipped a piece of pancake in syrup. Mom? Yeah? Are we really not Grandma's family anymore? That question hurt worse than anything at the wedding. I moved beside her in the booth. No, listen to me. She looked at me. Family isn't something that disappears because someone says a sentence. But you said, I know what I said. I took her hand. What I meant was that we're not going to keep acting like family means they can treat us badly. She considered that. So, Grandma is still Grandma? Yes. Do we have to see her? No. Her shoulders relaxed. That told me more than I wanted to know. Noah asked, can we still see Aunt June? June nearly choked on her coffee. Yes, she said. You are stuck with me. Noah nodded. Okay. And somehow, that was the first moment all day that felt like family. By Sunday morning, I had 38 missed calls. Mom left 11 voicemails. The first was angry. You had no right to embarrass us like that. The second was angrier. Victor has done nothing but try to join this family. The third was crying. I can't believe my daughter would threaten my home. The fourth involved the word ungrateful. By voicemail number 6, the story had changed. Apparently, she had never approved the tags. By voicemail number 8, she had barely heard what Victor said. By number 10, I was misunderstanding the dinner situation. There would have been food for the children, Carrie, obviously. By 11, she wanted peace. We both said things. No. That sentence used to work on me, not anymore. We both said things. As if insulting a child and objecting to the insult were equal contributions to conflict. Victor left 3 messages. His were shorter. The last one said, we need to discuss the property before you create legal complications. I forwarded it to my attorney. Then I called him Monday morning. He listened. When I finished, he was quiet for several seconds. Do you still intend to transfer the house? No. You're sure? For the first time since I started dealing with that property 9 years earlier, I answered without hesitation. Yes. Then destroy the unsigned transfer documents. I looked at the cream envelope on my kitchen counter. I will. There's another issue. What? Your mother's occupancy agreement. I leaned back. What about it? You've been covering almost everything. Yes? Do you want that to continue? I stared out the window. That question was bigger than the deed. Because the house wasn't the only thing I had been giving. I paid Mom's property insurance, a portion of utilities, repairs. Her phone plan was still attached to mine because Dad had originally set up the family account. I covered her roadside assistance. I paid for lawn service after she hurt her knee. And for almost 9 years, I had done it without adding the numbers together. So I did. That afternoon, I went through bank statements. The amount made me physically sick. Not because I regretted helping my widowed mother. I didn't. Because so much of it had continued long after she needed saving. It had simply become expected. I called my attorney again. I want everything formal from now on. That's sensible. No sudden eviction, nothing cruel. Understood. She can stay under the existing agreement while we work out a transition. All right? But I'm done paying voluntary expenses. He paused. That's a different thing from taking her home, Carrie. I know. I finally did. On Tuesday at 9:14 a.m., I sent Mom one message. Not 20 paragraphs, not a defense, not a list of every childhood injury. 4 sentences. Mom, I will not discuss Saturday by phone. I am not transferring Ashby Lane, and effective September 1st, I am ending the voluntary payments I have been making toward expenses that are not my contractual responsibility. You will receive written information regarding the property from my attorney. Do not contact Emma or Noah directly until I tell you they are ready. I stared at the screen, then added one final sentence. Any conversation about rebuilding our relationship will require an apology without excuses, blame, or the word but. Send. My hands shook afterward. People think boundaries feel powerful. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they feel like nausea. Sometimes they feel like grief wearing a seatbelt. Mom replied 18 minutes later. So Victor was right. This was always about controlling me with money. I read it once, then didn't answer. That was new too. Victor's condo never went on the market. I learned that from Tessa. 3 weeks after the wedding, she showed up at the bar where I worked. I was polishing glasses before opening. She sat down. You look tired. So do you. Thanks. You started it. For a second, we almost smiled. Then she looked at the shelves behind me. Can we talk? I'm working. You don't open for 20 minutes. Then you have 19. She winced. Okay. I put the glass down. What? Mom is a mess. I'm sorry. She says you won't talk to her. I told her the conditions. She thinks they're humiliating. I stared at my sister. An apology is humiliating? She thinks being told how to apologize is. She has tried to apologize 11 different ways without taking responsibility. Tessa rubbed her forehead. She said she didn't make the tags. Did she remove them? No. Did she object when Victor said we were staff? No. Did she find seats for my kids? No. Did she tell me food was for family? Tessa looked away. Yes. I waited. She whispered, I should have said something. I didn't expect that. She looked at me again. I laughed. Yes. I was uncomfortable. So was Emma. Tessa swallowed. I know. No, I don't think you do. I do now. Something in her face looked different, not defensive. Ashamed. I crossed my arms. She said, Emma wouldn't talk to me when I called Jason. I stiffened. You called my ex? I wanted to check on the kids. You don't go around me. I know, I'm sorry. There it was. No but. I softened slightly. Tessa stared down at the bar. Mom told me something else. What? She told Victor the house transfer was already done. I stopped breathing for half a second. What? He thought the paperwork was signed. When? I don't know exactly. Before the wedding. I thought about Victor seeing the envelope in my purse. His expression, his insistence that I stay for the toast, the announcement. Why? Because he was worried about selling his condo. I felt cold. She lied to him. Tessa nodded. She told him you had agreed and everything was basically completed. I laughed, not because it was funny, because suddenly the entire wedding made sense. Victor didn't think he was insulting the person who owned the house he planned to move into. He thought I had already transferred it. He thought I no longer had leverage.
And once he believed he had what he wanted, the mask slipped.
I said, "Did Mom tell him I paid the catering shortfall?" Tessa hesitated. Tessa, no. What did she tell him? That she covered it from savings. I stared at her. She told Victor she paid the $8,400? Yes. What about the liquor? I don't know. I put both hands flat on the bar. For years, I had assumed Mom minimized what I did because she didn't value it. This was worse. She valued it enough to claim it. Tessa whispered, "Carrie, I'm sorry." I looked at her. "Why are you telling me?" "Because I think you deserve to know what you're actually dealing with." That was the first useful thing my sister had given me in a long time. So I gave her something back. "The house isn't being transferred." "I know. Mom won't be homeless. I'm not throwing her out tomorrow." Tessa nodded. "But I'm not financing her life with Victor." "I understand." "Do you?" "I'm trying to." That was enough for that day. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation. Just enough. The $8,400 wedding loan became its own problem. Mom had promised September. September came. No payment. My attorney sent a simple demand letter documenting the transfer and repayment agreement from our text messages. Victor called me from a new number. I answered because I didn't recognize it. "Carrie." I almost hung up. He said, "Wait." "What? You sent your mother a legal demand?" "My attorney did." "For wedding money?" "For money she borrowed." "This is vindictive." "No. You disrupted our wedding, refused the house transfer, changed the arrangement on Ashby Lane, and now you want $8,400? "Yes." He was silent. Maybe he had expected me to defend myself. I didn't. Finally, he said, "Do you know what you've put your mother through?" I looked around my apartment. Emma's backpack was on the floor. Noah's shoes were under the couch. Normal life. Peaceful life. I know what she put my children through. "You're obsessed with those tags." I went still. "Those tags?" "Yes, a stupid joke." I said, "Thank you." "For what?" "For reminding me I have made the correct decision." He exhaled sharply. "You are exactly as difficult as Elaine warned me." I smiled. There it was, the insult that would have destroyed me 5 years earlier. "Then you should be relieved I'm no longer helping you." I hung up. He called twice more. I blocked the number. Mom finally wrote me a letter 6 weeks after the wedding. A physical letter. 4 pages. Aunt June brought it because I had stopped opening unexpected mail from Ashby Lane. I read it after the kids went to bed. The first page was mostly about her pain. The second was about Victor. He had been humiliated. His daughters were furious. Some of his business friends had asked uncomfortable questions after the wedding. One couple had apparently left early. Camille deleted the video she had taken, or claimed she had. On page 3, Mom finally wrote about Emma and Noah. "I should never have allowed them to feel unwelcome." I stopped there. Allowed. Not they misunderstood. Not Victor was joking. Allowed. I kept reading. "I knew about the tags before you arrived. Victor thought it was funny because you work events and because you refused to help with the bar. I told him it was childish, but I did not tell him to stop. I was afraid arguing with him would ruin the morning." My vision blurred. Not because I was shocked, because the truth, when it finally arrived, was so simple. She had known. She had chosen peace with him over dignity for us. She continued. When you asked about the seating, I already knew your names had been removed. Victor wanted to accommodate 3 couples from his business network. I agreed because I thought you would be flexible. You always have been. There it was. Flexible. I put the letter down. 8 years old again. Purple glitter invitations. You'll have other birthdays. Be flexible. 27 years later, the language hadn't changed. Only the price. I picked the letter back up. The final paragraph was different. I think I depended on your flexibility because it was easier than asking anything difficult of people who might say no. I knew you would show up. I knew you would fix things. I knew you would eventually forgive me. I treated your reliability like permission. I am ashamed of that. I read that paragraph 3 times. Then the last sentence. There is no but. I am sorry. I cried. Quietly. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. An apology does not erase a pattern. It only tells you whether a new pattern might someday be possible. I folded the letter, put it back in the envelope, and waited. That was another thing I had never done before. I didn't rush to relieve her guilt. 2 weeks later, I agreed to meet Mom. Public place, no Victor, no children. 1 hour. Those were my conditions. She accepted them. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. She looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, just less certain. For once, she didn't begin by talking. I did. Did you mean the letter? Yes. All of it? Yes. You knew about the tags. Her eyes filled. Yes. You knew there were no seats. Yes. You knew I paid for food my children weren't allowed to eat. She closed her eyes. Yes. That was the hardest one. I nodded. She whispered, I don't know why I did that. I do. She looked at me. You thought I'd stay. Her face crumpled. I didn't look away. You thought I would be embarrassed, maybe cry in the bathroom, maybe complain later. Then I'd clean something, fix something, pay for something, and eventually everything would go back to normal. She wiped her cheek. Yes. I can't go back to normal. I know. No, Mom, I need you to understand. I'm listening. The house is not transferring to you. She swallowed. Okay. You will need to pay the amount in the occupancy agreement going forward. Okay. I'm not covering your personal bills. She nodded. I understand. You and Victor can make whatever financial decisions you want. They just won't include my money. I understand. And the children decide when they see you. Her face changed. That hurt her. Good boundaries often hurt people. That doesn't make them wrong. She whispered, What if they don't want to? Then you live with that. A tear slid down her face. I continued, You do not guilt them. I won't. You don't say I'm keeping them from you. I won't. You don't send Tessa to pressure them. I won't. You don't show up at school. I would never. I raised an eyebrow. She stopped. Okay. For a minute, neither of us spoke. Then Mom said, Are you cutting me out of your life? I looked at the woman who had raised me, the woman who packed my school lunches, the woman who canceled my birthday, the woman who sat beside me at Dad's funeral, the woman who borrowed my savings, the woman who laughed when my children were labeled staff. People want family stories to have simple villains. Real life is crueler than that. Sometimes the person who hurts you also loves you. Sometimes they love you in a way built around access, around habit, around the certainty that you will absorb the damage. I said, I'm cutting out the version of our relationship where you get unlimited access to me, no matter how you behave. She looked down. Is there another version? Maybe. She looked up. Maybe? Yes. What do I have to do? I shook my head.
That's the wrong question. Then what's the right one? Who do you have to become when you can't rely on me being flexible? She cried again. I didn't rescue her from it, but when we left, I hugged her, briefly, because a boundary is not hatred, and compassion does not require surrender. Victor never apologized, not once. He moved into Ashby Lane anyway because Mom wanted him there, which the occupancy arrangement allowed as long as certain conditions were followed. He did not tear out Dad's workbench. That condition was added in writing. He also did not get his golf simulator. I'll admit that one made me smile. But I didn't celebrate his frustration. The point was never to punish him. The point was that he could no longer make decisions with things that weren't his. In November, Mom and Victor began looking for a place of their own. They found a townhouse in December. Smaller than Ashby Lane. Newer. No workshop. No history they could accidentally destroy. Mom moved out 2 weeks after New Year's. I stood in the driveway while movers loaded the final boxes. Victor barely looked at me. That was fine. Mom walked through the empty house one last time. I followed her. We stopped in the kitchen. The pencil marks were still inside the doorway. Tessa, age 7. Carrie, age 4. Tessa, 11. Carrie, 8. Dad's handwriting beside every line. Mom touched one. You were so small. I caught up. She smiled weakly. Yes, you did. Then we went to the workshop. Dad's bench was covered in dust. Mom ran her fingers over the wood. I should have stopped Victor when he talked about tearing this out. Yes. She nodded. No defense. No but. That mattered. She handed me the house key. I looked at it in my palm. For 9 years, I had thought owning that house meant I was responsible for preserving everyone else's comfort inside it. Standing there, I understood something different. Ownership meant I could decide what entered, what stayed, what changed. So did adulthood. Mom hugged me. I love you. I love you too. For the first time, I didn't add anything after that. No promise, no reassurance, no, we'll be okay. Love was true. The future was undecided. Both things could exist together. The kids eventually chose to see her. Emma waited almost 4 months. Noah wanted to see Grandma earlier, but he insisted I come. The first visit lasted an hour. Mom brought them each a small gift. Nothing dramatic. No guilt. No speech. Before Emma left, Mom crouched down. I owe you an apology. Emma looked at me. I nodded. Mom said, What happened at my wedding was wrong. You were my guest and my granddaughter. I knew about the tag, and I should have stopped it. I also should have made sure you had a seat and dinner. You did nothing wrong. Emma stared at her, then asked the question only a child would ask. Did you think it was funny? Mom's face broke. For a second, I acted like it was. Why? I wanted someone else to think I was fun. Emma frowned. That's dumb. I covered my mouth. Mom almost laughed through her tears. Yes, she nodded. It was very dumb. Emma thought about it, then said, Okay. That was all. Not forgiveness declared with violins, not a dramatic hug. Just, okay. Kids understand something adults often ruin with explanation. An apology is information. Trust is what happens afterward. The wedding loan was eventually repaid.
Not all at once. Mom sent $1,000 in October, then another $1,000. Victor paid the remaining balance in February after my attorney sent a final notice. The memo line on the check said, "Full and final." I deposited it. I didn't respond. The house on Ashby Lane stayed mine. For a while, I considered selling it. Then, one Sunday, I took Emma and Noah over. The place was empty. No furniture. Every sound echoed. Noah ran through the hallway yelling just to hear his voice bounce back. Emma found the pencil marks. "Is this you?" She pointed at one. "Carrie, 8. "Yep." "You were tiny." "Rude." She grinned. We went downstairs. Dad's workbench was still there. Noah climbed onto the stool. "What did Grandpa make here?" "Everything." "Like what?" "Shelves, birdhouses, a terrible coffee table." "Why was it terrible?" "It had one leg shorter than the others." "Did he know?" "He said the floor was crooked." Noah laughed. I laughed too. Then I noticed something hanging from a nail. Dad's old metal bottle opener. Rust along one edge. I remembered him using it at summer cookouts. I took it down. Emma asked, "Can we keep it?" I turned it over in my hand. "Yeah." Then I looked around the workshop. For years, that room had felt like a shrine. Victor had been wrong about almost everything, but maybe he had accidentally touched one truth. A house should not become a museum. So we didn't make it one. By spring, I had refinanced the remaining loan. That summer, I moved in with the kids. Emma got Dad's old upstairs room. Noah took mine. I painted the kitchen, replaced the carpet, opened the dining room wall.
But the workbench stayed. Some things can change without erasing what came before. That became important to me. I still bartend. I still work weddings. I still watch families become strange around seating charts and speeches and money. Once a bride apologized to me because her aunt snapped her fingers at me across the bar. I laughed. "You didn't do it." "She shouldn't treat you like that." Such a simple sentence. I almost cried. Not because of the aunt, because nobody in my own family had said it when I needed them to. She shouldn't treat you like that. Maybe boundaries begin there. Not with anger, not with punishment, with the simple decision to stop translating cruelty into something more convenient. She was stressed. He was joking. It was only a chair. It was only a tag. It was only dinner. It was only money. It was only a house. It was only one bad day. No. Sometimes one bad day is simply the first day you stop lying about all the days that came before it. Aunt June came over last month. We sat on the back deck Dad built. She brought wine. I made cocktails because apparently I will never escape being useful completely. The difference is that now I choose when. June lifted her glass. "To the cleaner." I stared at her. She burst out laughing. "That was terrible. Awful. Never say it again." "Fair." I looked through the kitchen window. Emma was helping Noah build something at Dad's workbench. They were arguing. Loudly. Something about a hammer. Normal. June followed my eyes. "You know what your dad would have said?" I smiled. "What?" "That you finally caught up." "To what?" "Yourself." I rolled my eyes. That sounds way too poetic for Dad. "True." She took a drink. "He probably would have said Victor was a fool." I laughed so hard I spilled my drink. "Yeah. That sounds more like him." For a while, we just sat there. Then June asked, "Do you regret not giving Elaine the house?" I didn't have to think. "No." "Do you regret what happened at the wedding?" That answer was harder. I regret that Emma and Noah had to experience it. Of course. I regret staying after the tags. June nodded. I regret ignoring things before that. She waited. I looked down at Dad's oversized watch on my wrist. But leaving? No? No. I had spent years believing walking away was the cruelest thing a daughter could do. It wasn't. Sometimes staying teaches people there is no price for hurting you. Sometimes staying teaches your children that love requires humiliation. Sometimes staying turns kindness into a renewable resource everybody can use, except you. Leaving that wedding didn't make me cruel. Keeping the house didn't make me greedy. Ending the payments didn't make me vindictive. And refusing to pretend it hadn't happened did not destroy our family. The truth was more uncomfortable. Our family had already been damaged. I simply stopped covering the cracks with my body. Mom and I speak now. Not every day, usually once a week, sometimes less. She comes to the kids' events when they invite her. She texts before visiting. She does not ask me for money. She has never again called me too sensitive. A few months ago, she came to the bar with Tessa. I was working. She waited until I finished serving another customer. Then she said, "When you have a minute, could you make me that lemon drink you made at Christmas?" I looked at her. She caught herself. "Only if you have time." I smiled. "I have time." It was small. So small most people wouldn't notice. I did. For years, she had assumed my labor. Now she asked. That doesn't erase the wedding. It doesn't erase the birthday when I was 8, or Dad's memorial, or the money, or those white plastic tags hanging from my children's clothes. Healing is not deletion. It is learning what gets to happen next. Victor and I barely speak. At Noah's school concert last month, he said hello. I said hello. That was the entire conversation. He doesn't like me. I'm comfortable with that. Being disliked by someone who benefited from your lack of boundaries is not evidence that the boundary is wrong. Camille never apologized. Morgan sent me one message almost 6 months after the wedding. I thought the tags were horrible. I should have said something. I replied, "You should have." She wrote, "I know. I'm sorry." I said, "Thank you." That was enough. Not everyone needs a courtroom scene. Not every hurt needs a relationship. Sometimes closure is simply accurate accounting. You did this. I felt this. Here is what happens now. I kept one of the tags, not intentionally. Weeks after the wedding, I found it under the passenger seat of my car. Cleaner's kid. For a moment, I wanted to throw it away. Then I put it in the cream envelope with the unsigned transfer documents. Months later, when we moved into Ashby Lane, I found that envelope while unpacking. I sat on the floor of Dad's old workshop. The house was quiet. I opened it. The deed was still inside. Blank signature line. A gift that never became a gift. The tag was on top. Cleaner's kid. I looked at those words for a long time. Then I tore the tag in half. Once, twice, again. I threw the pieces away. The deed was different. I didn't tear it. I took it to my attorney and had him shred the unnecessary transfer paperwork properly. I kept the cream envelope. Inside it now are copies of Emma's and Noah's birth certificates, my dad's old photograph from the workbench, and the first drawing Noah made after we moved in. It shows 4 crooked walls, 3 people holding hands, a giant green dog we do not own, and in red crayon above the roof, he wrote, "Our home." The first time I saw it, I had to sit down, because that was what I had been trying to buy for everyone else my whole life. A home, safety, belonging, a place where nobody had to wonder whether there would be a chair. And all those years, I had believed the way to create it was by giving more. More time, more money, more patience, more chances, more forgiveness. I know better now. A real home is not built from how much one person can endure.
A family is not measured by how useful you are to the people inside it. Love that only survives when you say yes to everything is not unconditional love. It is access, and access can be revoked. On the anniversary of Dad's death this year, I took the kids to the park where he had given me that powdered donut birthday breakfast when I was 8. I hadn't been there in years. The old picnic tables had been replaced. The playground was different. But I recognized the row of trees. We brought donuts. Emma asked why, so I told them the story. I told them about Grandma canceling my birthday, about Grandpa taking me there early in the morning, about the purple star balloon, about the candle in the donut. Noah thought putting a birthday candle in a powdered donut was the greatest innovation in human history. Emma asked, "Were you sad?" "Very." "Did Grandma apologize?" I thought about it. Not back then. Why not? Because sometimes adults think children will forget things just because children get quiet. Emma looked at me. "Kids don't forget." "I know." She leaned against my shoulder. Then she asked, "What did Grandpa say?" I smiled. He told me never to confuse being low maintenance with not mattering. "What does that mean?" I looked at both of them. "It means being kind doesn't mean people get to overlook you." Noah nodded solemnly, then asked if he could have another donut. Dad would have appreciated that.
We sat there until the sun started going down. No big revelation, no dramatic music, just 3 people on a bench. 3 people with food. 3 people with a place. I thought about the wedding, about the seating chart, about Mom laughing, about Victor telling me my children were staff, about the moment I said, "Then we're no longer your family." At the time, I thought I was ending something. Now I know I was defining it. I wasn't saying blood had disappeared. I was saying blood was no longer an excuse. You could love me and still lose access to me. You could be my mother and still be wrong. You could apologize and still have to rebuild trust. You could marry into my family and still not own what belonged to me. And I could be generous without surrendering myself. That might sound obvious to someone who learned boundaries young. I didn't. I learned service. I learned accommodation. I learned how to carry 3 drinks in one hand, open wine without looking, smile through insults, remember names, anticipate needs, and clean a room after everybody else went home. Those skills made me a good bartender. They almost destroyed me as a daughter. Because somewhere along the way, I began treating every relationship like a crowded bar on Saturday night. Keep everyone happy. Solve the problem quickly. Don't let anyone wait. Don't upset the important customers. Absorb the complaint, clean the spill, keep moving. And never, ever sit down. I don't live like that anymore. I still help people. I still love my mother. I still work behind a bar. I still say yes more often than I probably should. But now, before I say yes, I ask myself one question. Am I giving this because I want to, or because I'm afraid of what happens if I don't? That question has changed my life. Because love given freely feels warm. Love extracted through guilt feels like work. And I finally know the difference. The cream envelope is in a drawer in my kitchen now. Dad's old bottle opener sits beside it. The house is loud most evenings. Emma plays music upstairs. Noah leaves Legos in places designed specifically to injure my feet. Aunt June comes over without enough warning. Tessa and I are rebuilding something that might eventually look like sisterhood instead of habit. Mom is learning that asking is different from expecting. I am learning that forgiveness is different from permission. There are still difficult days. There are still moments when I want to call Mom after a hard shift and tell her everything. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. The difference is that now I choose. No one has a permanent seat in my life just because they share my last name. Seats are kept through care, through respect, through accountability. Funny, isn't it?
After everything that happened, it still comes back to a chair. At my mother's wedding, my children and I had no chairs, no plates, no place. For most of my life, I thought my job was to stand quietly beside the table and be grateful I had been allowed into the room. I don't believe that anymore. If there is no place for my dignity, there is no place for me. If my children are welcome only when they are convenient, they are not welcome. If love requires us to make ourselves smaller so someone else can feel bigger, that is not the kind of love I want them learning from me. So when I remember that wedding now, I don't remember Victor's face first. I don't remember my mother laughing. I don't even remember the envelope. I remember Emma's hand in mine, Noah pressed against my side, and the doors of Magnolia Ridge opening in front of us as we walked out together. For once, I wasn't staying behind to clean up everyone else's mess. I was leaving with the two people who needed to see me choose them, and myself. I spent 35 years volunteering for a role that only existed to shrink me. That night, I finally clocked out.